following program is a podcast1.com production.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Would you be willing to sign an immigration deal that ultimately does not include funding for the border wall, or would that be a red line for you?
No.
No?
It's got to include the wall. We need the wall for security. We need the wall for safety. We need the wall for stopping the drugs from pouring in. I would imagine that the people in the room, both Democrat and Republican, I really believe they're going to come up with a solution to the DACA problem, which has been going on for a long time, and maybe beyond that, immigration as a whole. But any solution has to include the wall, because without the wall, it all doesn't work.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Now that's the president I love to hear. I love it, I love it, I love it. Wall, chain migration, you throw in the visa lottery and that E-Verify, get rid of the funding for sanctuary cities. And I'm about as happy as I can be, given the fact that I don't like any amnesty. And, you know, I'm a straight down the line person on this amnesty deal. I don't want any amnesty. I also don't want a Jeff Flake wall. I'm going to call the see-through wall the Jeff Flake option, because he seems to be thrilled about the idea of a see-through wall, given everything that he's been saying lately. 855-40-LAURA. The president said that yesterday at a press conference with the Norwegian Prime Minister, who I actually liked. I liked her. I know she's, for the climate change thing, but all those Northern Europeans are. But I liked her. I thought she was representing her country's interests. I'll play a little bit from her as well later on. Again, she didn't get much notice yesterday. I thought it was a terrific press conference. I know the press wanted to ask questions about Mueller. Who cares? Okay, we'll get into that as well. We have Tom Cotton, who's going to join us shortly on the Laura Ingraham Show. Gary Palmer, who a lot of people think will end up taking that Jeff Sessions seat away from that Dan Jones, I've tried to put his name out of my mind in Alabama. Doug Jones. I always call him Dan Jones. The lame duck senator from Alabama, Doug Jones. Gary Palmer's a congressman. He and I were texting madly with each other during the Alabama game because he sadly wasn't there. He went to University of Alabama, played for Bear Bryant. But Gary's just phenomenal on immigration, all these other issues. He's going to give us a no-holds-bar update on what's really happening behind the scenes. Alan Dershowitz will stop by. Wow, we have a great show on tap. I have late nights these days because of the show. In early mornings, so it's getting up in the morning is not as I don't bounce up like I used to, right? But today, when I woke up, I turned my phone on, and I just opened up a picture from my producer Nick Robertson, one of my producers in New York. He and his wife just had the most beautiful baby girl yesterday. He was working on the show yesterday. He said, well, I got to go. Where did Nick go? Well, he went to the hospital. His wife's having a baby. Oh my gosh. She was, I think, 10 days overdue. Okay, I'm showing Taylor right now. It's the baby looks like it's a year old. Look how big the baby is.
That is a healthy baby.
Isn't she cute?
She is really
I'm going to show a picture at the end of the Ingraham angle. Oh my, I'm just a baby person. I love babies. I can't wait for my kids to get married so I can have grandchildren. I'm missing babies. I love babies. But you want to put me in a good mood? Let me hang around with a baby for a while, and I'll be in a great mood. This baby is so cute. Anyway, I'll put a picture up at the end of the Ingraham angle tonight. I guess I should ask him before I start posting it online, so I'm not going to do that. But so I'm in a good mood. Okay, so that was Trump yesterday. We had the typical grousers. We're going to get to them who literally cannot find anything good to say. Doesn't matter what is happening on the economy. And one piece of news that didn't get a lot of focus that I managed to squeeze into the show last night, I think is the best news just on the corporate bonus front that I've seen. I'll get to that in a moment. And people still complaining about it. I've never seen anything like this before. Mike Pence gave an interview to Martha McCallum last night. And again, they seem to be speaking directly to us because we are going to hold the line on immigration. And I mean, hold it as much as we can, given the votes that are out there. This is what Mike Pence said.
Some of the president's biggest supporters when it comes to immigration were really felt very betrayed by what the president said at that table yesterday, that he sort of gave away the farm on the issue.
Well, nothing could be further from the truth. This president, this administration are absolutely committed to keep the promises we made to the American people. There's no DACA fix without a wall. We're going to build a wall. We're going to end chain migration. We're going to end the visa lottery program. And we're going to deal with DACA, but we're going to do it in a way that will meet the expectation of the American people.
I think on this issue, the most important thing that this administration can do is remember who your real friends are. When you're sitting around a table, and think about it this way. When you're sitting around a table with a bunch of people, and someone starts to talk trash on one of your friends, are you the kind of person who just sits there and nods and then actually adds some fuel to the fire? Or are you the kind of person who says, you know something, I don't agree with what you just said about my friend. My friend's a good person, and I don't know why you're saying that, and we're going to work this out. Or are you going to be the kind of person who says, yeah, that type of person is really, they're not going to be happy with. Well, that's what you know what I'm talking about. Remember when Lindsey Graham on Tuesday, was it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday, made the point about talk radio and Fox News. And then when Trump comes along and says, well, the hard right and the hard left, they're not going to be happy with this, but I'll take the heat. Well, look, I know Donald Trump is a master negotiator, and I know he has a lot of levels of chess going on there. I'm sick of 3D chess references, but you know what I'm saying. He's playing at multiple levels, and he does have to govern. It's not a debating society in high school that he's engaged in. So it's not as simple as a lot of us would like it to be. It should be. I mean, all of this should be easy. We should just say ending chain migration. Congress should pass it. We should say we're building a wall because we have a huge influx of people crossing the border, and I'll bring you the latest on that. And this should be easy. Enforcement should be done without any strings attached. I got into a big argument last night with Tamar Jacoby from Immigration Works on this issue. Why do you have to link DACA with enforcement? If Congress really kept the American people's interest at the forefront, American people and legal immigrants keep their interests at the forefront, why do you need to link amnesty to that? The answer is you don't. But weak-kneed politicians who want to be dragged kicking and screaming to enforce, then you have to give something on the other side. Now that to me is astounding. And I said last night very clearly, the president should walk away from any bad deal. Have the presence of your convictions to walk away. If you aren't willing to walk away, then that is not a negotiation, because you understand that everyone will know that you'll give in the end. That's why you have to be willing to walk away. So when someone says, okay, go ahead and sue me, and you said, okay, I'll see you in court, that means you better take them to court. That means okay, good, I'll go to court. If someone does that to me, I'll say, okay, and I'm going to court. I love court, by the way. It brings me back to I'm getting my my DC bar license reactivated, because I have a dormant license because I haven't been practicing in a while. I'm deciding to get it reactivated. Well, I could be doing some cases, some pro bono cases. I love that's because I have not enough on my plate right now. But I love being in court. I miss it. I miss actually being in court, and I want to be in front of a jury because it's fun for me. I love that. I like prosecuting the case. Even though I wasn't a prosecutor, I like making my point and making it really convincingly. You have to be willing to do that in a deal. You have to be willing to go all the way. I hope that's the case with this administration. Talk is cheap. Doing it is another thing. Now, the president has held firm so far on trade, and good stuff is happening there. The president has held firm on interior enforcement. We want to see even more of it. Obama actually deported quite a few people. I think he might have even deported more people in his first year as president. Check that out, Taylor. I believe Obama deported more people in his first year as president than Trump. I'm not sure. I don't want to say it incorrectly, but I believe I read that. But nevertheless, he's doing interior enforcement. Even yesterday, 100 7-Elevens. This is a good question to throw out to people. 100 7-Elevens were raided by ICE. Why? Because the employers are unscrupulous in hiring illegals knowingly because they can get them cheap. Number two, the illegals are using false identification to get jobs. And they know they're not supposed to be working here. So it's a twofer. You get the employers, you get the employees, you get the employees out of the country. Do you think we should have more of those types of workplace enforcement operations? 855-40-LAURA. And of course, in addition to prioritizing the most violent offenders. I think without that kind of, again, getting back to action versus talk, without that type of enforcement, and look, it's a drop in the bucket. Go to any construction site in D.C., go to any construction site in any city near you, and you will find scores and scores and scores of illegal workers. I mean, they could be doing enforcement raids all day long. For the next 10 years, they wouldn't get everybody out of the country. But do you believe that we need to do that and put heavy penalties on employers who don't and who knowingly hire illegals? That means you need to have E-Verify. A lot of people still believe you need a national ID system. I'm not even against that, I've got to say. I know a lot of libertarians are against a national ID. I'm not against a national ID. You need a Social Security number anyway. They're just abusing the Social Security number, and they're just using dead people's Social Security number. So why not have a national ID that's tamper-proof? I mean, I'd do it. If I'd do anything if it's enforcement first, and everyone who wants to come to this country, it has to be done on a merit-based system. We have to end the flood of chain migration. Do you know that only 18% of green card recipients in the last year came on a legitimate work visa? 18%. 44% were chain migrants. That means adult children, aunts, uncles, grandparents. Yeah, I mean, spouses, of course, parents. It was not just spouses and minor children. We're talking aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. Oh, it's ridiculous. 44% chain migrants, and I think another 23% other family-based migration. So family-based is that's the legitimate family track. So your spouse or your minor children. I mean, no one wants to keep a spouse out or a minor child. We're talking 23-year-old kids coming in. No. That's not how it works. That's not how it's supposed to ever work. Were you heartened by what you heard from the president and Mike Pence? Or, like myself, are you cautiously optimistic, given that the following people are praising the negotiations? Jeff Flake, Lindsey Graham, the Chamber of Commerce, the staff of John McCain, and Dana Bash of CNN and David Gergen. Oh, sorry, Jeb Bush. How did I forget Jeb Bush? The crown glory of all praise that you don't want. So all those people are praising Donald Trump. So what does that tell you? I loved hearing what he said yesterday. But what does that mean in practice? Is it a down payment, a piddly down payment on a wall that will never get built? Or is this meaningful? You're listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction, 855-40-LAURA. Will the president slap down Lindsey Graham for continuing to hit talk radio, Fox News, and all of Trump supporters who stood firm on the issue of immigration? When we come back, I'll play you what Graham said again yesterday. And by the way, we've invited him on the show. We've invited Cory Gardner. They will not come on this show. They will not come on my Fox show because they're afraid of answering tough questions on this. We'll take a break. Don't go away. For hardworking Americans like us, it doesn't seem like there's ever enough time in the day. Freshly is the easiest and most convenient way to eat healthy, no matter what life throws your way. Freshly's team of chefs create all-natural, gluten-free dinners and deliver them fresh to your door. So even if you get stuck at work late, you can still come home to a delicious dinner cooked by a chef. No more worrying about having to figure out what's for dinner, and especially no mess to clean up after. Freshly chefs source the finest all-natural ingredients they can find, and then they work with nutritionists to ensure that their meals are as healthy as possible. All of the meals are made to order and pre-portioned. Their menu is created by chefs for people who want to eat healthy but are living busy lives and don't always have the time to do shopping, cooking, and cleaning. Check out this week's menu created by Freshly's chefs and get $25 off your first order of 6 chef-cooked dinners plus free shipping by going to freshly.com/Laura. You'll feel so relieved to come home to a chef-cooked meal every night with Freshly. That's freshly.com/Laura for $25 off your first order. Order today to see what life's like when you no longer have to think about dinner.
I hear voices. I hear voices.
I think the president did a fabulous job of talking about this problem. He did it in a smart way, in a compassionate way. And, his job is not to sell books. His job is not to carry a TV show. His job is to solve problems, and he's got to work with Democrats. And I was proud of my president yesterday.
Hear voices all the time.
Oh, that makes a lot of you nervous. See, I guess most of you are happy when Lindsey Graham isn't. Right? I mean, if Lindsey Graham, who pushed the Gang of Eight amnesty and the amnesty back in 2007, and is all gung-ho on the Iraq War and all these trade deals, and wait a second, he's happy? What's going on here? June in North Carolina. He doesn't have to carry a TV show, or he doesn't have to sell books. Oh, that's a big revelation from Lindsey. June, go ahead.
I don't believe, first of all, I think Lindsey's a quack. I don't think he believes anything with conviction. I don't believe Trump will call him out. I think he's at the table dealing with this deal, and he's going to make a deal one way or the other.
Yeah, it just sounds like there's a deal in the offing, and I like it when people are willing to walk away. Walk away. I'm on the fence about how this is all going. I mean, last night, how many of you watched the Ingraham Angle monologue last night? If you haven't, please watch it on lauraingraham.com. It's up there, Taylor, right? The monologue, it's up. Facebook, lauraingraham.com. Make sure it's posted. I want you all to watch. And I laid out the narrative in a way that I think would be very useful for you to digest. So if you wouldn't mind, if you can, even when you're listening to the show now, if you don't mind going to our Facebook page and to lauraingraham.com and watching it. I retweeted it already on my Twitter feed. Taylor will make sure it's up there on both Facebook and lauraingraham.com, but I'll retweet it on Twitter if it's not posted by the time you get there. And you should watch it. It's a warning to the president, polite warning, that all of you who called in yesterday, so many of you who are on the line now, you want results. The president promised results, you want results. And if you can't get Republicans and Democrats to agree to stop the madness of chain migration, visa lottery, and to build this wall at the border, then there is no deal. And the 800,000 illegals in the country, where they're going to have to start going home, and their parents are going to start taking them home. Because the Democrats wouldn't come to the table on the issue that I campaigned on. All right, your reaction, watch it when we come back.
If we're gonna carry on, I'll be waiting on the other side till the threads are gone.
Donald Trump will be the president that can do it. He's got credibility on the border security issue that nobody else has. He does have compassion in his heart for these kids. We're going to get a good deal under his leadership. And the difference between being a radio talk show host and a TV personality and president is that as president, you got to solve problems.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA. A friend of mine just emailed me and said, if you're being attacked, Laura, by Lindsey Graham, you're doing something right. And that is exactly the way I feel. There was a time where I had to draw the line with President George W. Bush, and I did. It was over the issue of immigration and Harriet Miers and spending, and it came kind of in around 2005, 2006. And, you know, my relationship with George W. Bush changed forever after that. And I just, this is not about personalities. See, the left was stupid. They always thought that the rise of Trump was just about, oh, he's an entertainment figure, he's entertaining, he's a big personality, that's why people like him. It's all about showbiz. What they never understood, either the establishment on the right or the left, what they never understood is that it was about principles. It was about the border, it was about spending, it was about trade, it was about American sovereignty, it was about smashing corruption in D.C. There were principles undergirding this movement. That's what I wrote Billionaire at the Barricades all about. Lindsey Graham, by the way, was part of that barricade and is part of that barricade. Now, the president might not see it right now, or he might be temporarily just working with Lindsey because it's the best he can do. But Lindsey Graham might be buttering you up and sucking up to you right now and flattering you and playing to everybody's ego in the room, but he's not a Trump conservative. 855-40-LAURA. Let's go to Ken in Georgia before we go to Byron York. Ken, the work site enforcement that I said needs to be done regularly, not just here and there on a 7-Eleven or 100 of them, but across the country, across the fruited plains, businesses who hire illegals need to be severely punished, severely fined, and if appropriate, there needs to be criminal charges filed. If it's a conspiracy to undermine U.S. immigration law, there could be a conspiracy charge against a lot of these big businesses for hiring illegals. Ken, go ahead.
Laura, if you built a new home in 1980s, 90s, early 2000s, every mason that worked and did your concrete work was African-American. These days, you go into a subdivision in Atlanta, there's not one African-American employed in that subdivision. It's all illegals and Hispanic. Trump,
so there were mostly... So, Ken, restate that and speak up, would you? Because I'm going to put a lot of these comments together as I did last night on the Ingraham angle. A lot of you were featured on the Ingraham angle. If you're not watching, you're missing your own voices because we put together great montages of my listeners and we play them on the show. And people have responded really well to that. They really like hearing from the listening audience. Some people don't have a chance to listen to the radio. Too bad for them, but they want to hear your voice. So restate that a little bit louder and clearly.
If you built a home in Atlanta in the 1980s, 90s, early 2000s, every concrete worker was African-American. They did all your masonry work, all your foundation work, all your sidewalks, everything. These days, you don't find one African-American on the work site in any Atlanta subdivision. It's a shame. It's all Hispanic. It's all illegal.
It's heartbreaking. And this is why African Americans should be with us on this issue. And I think most of them actually are, but they're instinctively drawn to the Democrat Party, who's been responsible more than any other party for cheering this on. Republicans are responsible too, but at least some of us are trying to fix it now. Ken, I appreciate that comment. Let's go to Dennis in New Hampshire before we're going to go right to Byron York. Dennis.
Thank you. Laura, approach this from a little different aspect. Everybody needs to have a little accountability and responsibility. These kids, you stop right there. They're not kids, they're adults. So the idea of kids like they're innocent victims, once you hit 20 to 30 years old, you're kind of aware of what goes on in the world. Perhaps the approach is this, to know first who they are so that we can identify and attack this problem, make them required to register at their local town hall without fear of deportation. That's important.
It's not the law.
We've got to bring them out.
Yeah, we don't bring them out. I disagree. That's not the law. That's not the law. Do you want to create a law where everyone has to go to their town council? The rule of law is come in the country legally or get out. That's the law. You are a deportable alien if you cross this border illegally. We are not a social welfare program for the world. At least we're not supposed to be. So I understand what you're saying. Every time I hear someone come out of the shadows, I just want to throw up, frankly. They're out of the shadows, okay? They're working in work sites all over D.C. At every new home build in Northern Virginia, you go try to find an English-speaking worker. Good luck. Good luck. And you bet those jobs supported American families for decades and decades and decades since the founding of this country. Those jobs supported American families. So yes, I'm standing up for African American families, other families who depended on those jobs. Don't say Americans didn't do those jobs, because my family did those jobs. Many of your families did those jobs, from hospitality to cleaning toilets to picking tobacco to picking fruit to building houses. Byron York joining us now from Washington Examiner. Byron, a lot going on we got to talk to you about. I mean, I just said, look, there was a moment in the 2000s when I broke with George W. Bush. It was about 2005, 2006 when he nominated Harriet Miers to the Supreme Court, and when they began to push this amnesty, big spending programs, and I had finally had enough, and that was it. I don't think I'm here now yet. I hope not. But some of the things said by Lindsey Graham about Fox News, talk radio, and the president didn't come to our defense, that concerned me, and a lot more. So your thoughts?
Well, I think at that 55-minute televised meeting with Trump the other day, I think a lot of immigration conservatives were just kind of on the edge of their seats saying, oh, my God, what's he going to say next? But there's a couple of things to say. One, Trump does speak in a sort of shorthand that sometimes people don't get. So in that famous exchange where Senator Feinstein did the classic Democratic technique, which is, why don't you give us everything we want now, and we'll talk about what you want later. Trump seemed to agree to that. But it became clear, I think, if you listen to him, that when he says he wants to, quote, do DACA, by do DACA, he means a legalization for all 800,000 DACA recipients, plus a wall, plus visa lottery, and plus what's the last one? Chain migration. So that's the way Trump talks. Now, on the Lindsey Graham part, I think it's really interesting. Trump is learning to adapt his business experience to Washington, which is full of alliances of convenience. Was Lindsey Graham doing the right thing when he and Charles Grassley sent this criminal referral about the dossier to the Justice Department? I think most Republicans, including Trump, certainly would say yes. Now, Lindsey Graham is way on the Democratic side of the Gang of Eight debate, and he's always going to be there. But the fact is, Democrats do exist. There are 49 of them in the Senate. Trump needs to hear that as well.
Well, I think you're right about that. The concern that I have, and I think it's well-founded in recent historical events, is that when we hear people like Jeff Flake and others talk about a see-through, opaque fence, we talk about, we're going to have sensors and drones. We're going to have drones, sensors, going to be high-tech. That means nothing. Once people reach the United States, they need to be immediately removed from the country. We cannot release them into the system, let them go live with sponsors, and then goodbye, adios, never see them again. That's what's happening right now. And it continues to happen under Donald Trump. It continues to happen every day under Donald Trump. People are released into the country after crossing the border. They never come back for their immigration hearing, and then it's over. And right now, the New York Times and others are reporting that there is a massive push right now across the border. Why? Because immigration amnesty is likely to happen. And who is going to deport these people crossing the border now? Do we really think they're all going to be deported? I don't think so.
Right, and the debate inside this, the whole immigration debate is about permanent measures versus temporary or just illusory measures. A permanent measure is to legalize everybody in the country. They're never going to be not legalized in that case. An illusory measure is more technology to help stop border crossings. That's why the wall is actually an important thing, physically important, because it is an actual permanent measure. It can't be undone. Now, I don't know how your listeners think about this, but clearly there's going to be a lot of talk about what constitutes a wall.
Yeah.
Personally, if you go back to the Secure Fence Act of 2006,
which he didn't want to sign, by the way. When I talked to the president, he's like, "I'm not signing that." I'm like, "Oh, really? Okay. Well, that's not going to work out." He ended up signing it, but nothing. A lot didn't happen.
Correct, and of course Charles Schumer voted for it,
right,
along with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. But I mean, if you actually did that, 700 miles of this double fencing with a road in between and all the stuff that goes into guarding a barrier like that, if you actually did that over those 700 miles, it would make an enormous amount of difference. So Trump at the meeting said, you would need a different type of physical barrier in different places. But some of the stuff that Congress has already approved would be very, very good. And by the way, of the 700 miles that Congress voted for into law in 2006, I believe there's about 35 miles that actually exist today.
So how much of it was supposed to have been built, and why then wasn't it built?
What it did was it gave, it was around 700 miles. It gave actual physical, from this place, a wall from this place to this place, along the areas of the border where it would be most effective. The reason it wasn't done is that Congress and the president didn't want to do it. Right. They wanted to say they voted for it, but there was a consensus, a bipartisan consensus, not to do it, even after the President Bush, signed it into law.
Well, and again, President Bush didn't want to do it. Congress didn't want to do it, and it didn't get done. I tend to think what did Fisher say, Tom Fisher, yesterday? His company, Sand and Gravel, is one of the companies that is bidding. I think he said 32 feet concrete. It's a really thick concrete wall. He said that is, you're not getting over that. The way that thing would be built, it would last for, I think he said 100 years, 120 years. It's not going to deteriorate, need to be, repaired constantly. It's a structure, the way it's built, that it will be, that is permanent. I'm not sure about a double fence, how permanent that is. But but a wall of that nature, which would cost, I guess, about $20 billion. Again, that's the amount of money that illegals send home in the form of remittances every year. $20 billion to build that. He said we could build it in 6 years. 6 years for the entire thing. That's what he said. Not 10 years, 6 years.
I've also been told by people who are thinking about it, there are people who are trying to think creatively about this. Yeah. Obviously, Democrats want to throw their bodies in front of this. They'll do anything to stop this. But if you manage to get a down payment to begin work on the wall, and at the same time you authorize a new revenue stream for the wall based on border fees, border crossing fees, or visa fees, you actually create a revenue stream for a wall. It's like a toll road, and that funds the construction of the wall going forward. And by the way, extra added bonus, it would mean Mexico is paying for a good part of the wall. So there are different ways to think about this, and there's a lot of creativity going into this. And what is needed, you mentioned, and you hit it completely, after Congress passed the Secure Fence Act, the President Bush didn't want to do it.
Secure
If
Fence
a president had really wanted to do it at that time, then it would have gotten done.
Yeah, he said it to me. I'm not going to sign that. And
yeah,
I said, okay. I said okay.
But imagine
you're going to have to, and he did. I said you're going to have to sign it, and he did. And but he didn't want to.
Imagine a strong and determined executive who not only did want to sign it but wanted to enforce it. He would have gotten a lot more done.
Byron York, phenomenal seeing you on Special Report last night. You were great. Come on the Ingraham angle soon. Some of the best reporting. We didn't even get to the latest on Mueller, but we will on TV. Byron York here on the Laura Ingraham Show. All right, we'll get to all your calls. Revenue stream to pay for the wall. I'm all for that. More on this Lindsey Graham. The Lindsey Graham thing. I think I'm going to have to take another bite at that apple tonight on the Ingraham angle because that's really gotten under my skin. I'm defending all of my listeners and all the viewers on Fox when they're trashed by Lindsey Graham, which is what he did. Who's going to be left to defend Donald Trump once the House goes Democrat next year? All those retirements. Who's going to be left to defend him? Lindsey Graham? Dick Durbin? Don't go away. All right, let's go to Eric in Oklahoma on the Laura Ingraham Show. Everyone responding to this immigration move by President Trump. Will there be a deal? Eric.
Yes, Ms. Ingram. If Mr. Trump wants to see how legal and illegal immigration affects small towns, especially in the Midwest, he needs to go to a town such as Knoll, Missouri, or Southwest City, Missouri, where chicken plants have come in and started plants. And some years ago, a specific company was actually obliterated an entire shift because of illegal immigration. ICE came in and actually shut down an entire shift of workers that were there illegally.
That's heartbreaking. Well, American workers dispensable when you can bring in people who get paid pennies on the dollar. It's all about money for them, not about country. Sad.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Welcome, stranger. Come on in. Come on in.
Florida is known for many things. Sunshine, beaches, and now as a place where hundreds of Russians come every year to have their babies. That's right, Russian women who give birth to American babies. It's controversial for sure, but totally legal.
What? Well, yeah, we brought you this story before when it came to the Chinese who come here. They go to Long Beach, California, to the birth motels that are set up as processing centers for pregnant women in their third trimester who stay there. There are midwives who come, deliver the babies at the motel, and then they go right to the passport processing center, fill out the paperwork, get the passport, go home until they want to come back here and live. And, then chain migration. Bring the mom in, bring the dad in, bring the brothers in, and then you're off to the races.
Oh, it's really common. When I was taking the plane to come here, there was not only me, there was another 4 or 5 women flying here.
Why do they come?
American passport is a big plus for the baby. Why not?
It sure is. All these babies will have the right to live and work here, receive benefits, and when they turn 21, they can sponsor their parents for an American green card.
855-40-LAURA. This is yet another immigration abuse. This is yet another issue that, frankly, should be tackled. This absolutely insane idea of birthright citizenship that is being abused and has been abused for decades and decades. This is never what the framers intended. Don't even try the 14th Amendment argument on me. It's never what they intended. And suddenly people who believe in stretching the Constitution for every other purpose, abortion and gay marriage, are now saying, the 14th Amendment. So, no, the 14th Amendment, the language was applicable and written to cover diplomats and ambassadors living in the United States and their children. The idea that it's a blanket welcome to anyone coming here in their third trimester just to game the system is never what our framers intended. It is a preposterous constitutional argument. And we see what's happening. And I find it to be infuriating. They have agencies set up. In Russia, they have agencies in China. They work with agencies in the United States, and it's just a processing center. So that's what American citizenship has become. That's what it is today. Taylor, remind me of which developed countries allow for birthright citizenship. Most of them have gotten rid of it. Canada might still allow it, but there are almost no examples, I think, of I know in Europe, forget it. I mean, EU is impossible to get citizenship. He has to be merit-based, and for even for spouses, it's very difficult to get an EU passport. But look it up, because I always forget whether it's Canada. It might be one of the last.
I'm seeing Canada. Canada is a yes.
Canada,
unrestricted.
Okay, Canada's a yes. So, well, Canada has very few people living there, and they have a massive, huge country with, their population centers concentrated in, 4 or 5 cities. America is much bigger, and we already have a massive problem with illegal immigration here. 855-40-LAURA. We have the president's comments yesterday seeming to walk back his openness to comprehensive immigration reform, but I don't know. To me, it seems like that's the next thing on the table. Amnesty for all 15 million people living here illegally. I mean, why not? If Lindsey Graham is going to run the show, then let Lindsey Graham run the show. He wants to do it all across the board. More from this NBC News report on the Russians now coming here.
There are dozens of agencies that help women come to the U.S. In Moscow, we found one openly advertising American citizenship. The agencies do it all, helping clients find luxury apartments, doctors, and even assist with obtaining visas and the baby's U.S. passport.
How much do you think this is going to end up costing you and your husband? Near $50,000. Yeah.
$50,000.
Yeah.
And it's worth it.
Yeah.
Well, here's the only good news, is that $50,000 for the average Russian, there's just no way they can get it, because there's basically no middle class left in Russia. It's working poor and the elites. But still, the elites shouldn't be able to come here and do that. Because once they get a passport for the baby, got to bring the child comes here. Oh, mama has to come. Yeah, mama has to come. Daddy has to come. Yeah, well, that's the way that's the way they want to do it. Of course. Ryan in Maine, a lot of people calling in about Lindsey Graham trashing talk radio last night on Fox, trashing people like yours truly, not by name, but it was obvious who he was talking about. Is the president going to come to our defense? Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I think this conversation about so-called chain migration and the visa lottery needs a little bit of clarity, because both of those, the provisions that allow for those two things, don't mean that if you win the visa lottery or you take part in this chain migration that you get automatic admittance or even automatically get a visa. What it means is you go into a different line. And those lines have different numbers that are going to be allowed in each year, and you still have to meet the same standard. You still need to be, vetted to the degree that they do currently, whatever that is. Whether that's right or not, it's a different story. But so when we talk about chain migration and the visa lottery, it doesn't mean they automatically get to come in. It means they go to a different line. They still have to meet all the same requirements that anyone would.
No, they don't.
So I think it's important that we understand that.
Okay, so how did the lovely fellow who ran down all those people in New York, how was he able to get through that system then?
Well, you're asking a question that I don't have an answer for. I don't know how he did it. I just know what the current rules are.
Well, I don't care. Here's what the fact is, Ryan. For 50 years, when we had an industrial revolution going on and heavy manufacturing during World War II, from United Technologies to Pratt & Whitney aircraft engine, Sikorsky, all these electric boat, but all these other big manufacturing companies, textiles and everything, all the way up into the mid-1960s, we had immigration that was based on merit in the needs of our workforce. With families, only immediate family members, meaning spouses and minor children. spouses and minor children. After 1965, we went away from immigration that was based in, we're going to bring in people from countries that have a similar culture and understanding as ours. We're going to favor them. And 1965, it was everyone can come. Yeah, of course you have to go through some, rigmarole with paperwork. Everyone can come, and we opened up the family migration to get major priority. That's why last year, of the 1 million green cards, 44% were chain migrants. 22%, Mark Krikorian just put this statistic out yesterday on Twitter, 22% were other family-based entrants into the system. So it wasn't specifically chain migration, but other family relations. So only 18% of our green card 18% of 1 million people come here for a need, that we need them here. That is wacky. We do not have an interest in our country of importing entire family trees into, as you just heard from our previous caller, Missouri, South Dakota, Maine. Why are we importing other towns, basically, from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from Somalia, from southern Mexico? Entire villages of extended family members are moving to the United States en masse over a period of years. I told the story to my listeners last week, the week before, about my son doing his guitar recital in Sterling, Virginia, out in Sterling area. And he goes out there, and in the Sterling, I used to bike out there, and a lot of friends of mine used to hunt out there. A lot of turkey hunting and deer hunting 30 years ago. But now it is mostly Indians and Muslims and some Hispanics. And the people were, very nice people, and the Indian people who were at this recital, they're amazing people. But literally, my son was the only non-foreign kid at this recital. He's obviously an adopted kid from Russia, so in a way he's foreign too. But you know what my point is. That's a huge demographic change in just 30 years, 20 years in the United States of America. So for rural Virginia is now the dominant immigration pattern has been from India and Pakistan. I don't understand how that can possibly lead to an assimilated society. Not when we have schools that aren't even teaching American history as it needs to be taught. I don't think that works. We've seen what's happened in Europe. Obviously, we're better than they are at assimilating. But immigration is supposed to be for the benefit of the people in the United States, not for the benefit of anyone who wants to come here. It's supposed to be for our benefit. It's not a universal right to move to the United States of America. So it's a different way to get. Why are we allowing 1 million green cards in the United States every year? 1 million? Really? Let's go to Shelley in Florida. Shelley.
Yeah, Laura, I started thinking about this last night. When you go to Walmart corporate in Bentonville or Apple or Google or any of these corporations, you have to know someone, you sign in, they give you an RF badge, they want to know who you're there for, how long you're staying, when you leave, because why? They want security. They can't have you just coming in to eat lunch there, run amok, do what you want. So if they think we don't need borders and we don't need security and we can just let everybody in and not worry about our security as a country, then stop asking for people for their ID at your door. Let them come into your business, mill around, and see how you feel. It's the left wings that run the industry saying that we don't need security, we don't need the border. Why are you running your business the way we should run our country?
Well, you remember when Mark Zuckerberg bought all the houses around his house in Silicon Valley? Remember he bought all those houses? He wanted his own perimeter established. Ditto for his place in Hawaii. So they know how to build walls. They just don't want the country to have walls. But they lock it down in their own homes, don't they? Let everyone who wants to come into Zuckerberg's house come into his house. Well, if open door is the way to go, then let's really live that way, Mark. Do you guys think I'm too inflexible on this issue? I'm really trying to understand how we can do it any other way than to have the rule of law respected. I really am trying to understand this. But I've seen what's happened in rural America, even places that were rural, cohesive communities. Suddenly they have big drug problems. Suddenly they have gang problems. Suddenly we have no American English-speaking workers at major construction work sites all over District of Columbia, all over Nashville when I go there, all over Dallas, Texas. You cannot find an English-speaking worker. Why is that? Don't tell me that Americans won't do these jobs. You're right that Americans are not going to do the jobs if you lower the wages to a level that you can't live on unless you have 10 families in a 4-bedroom apartment, which is what the illegals do. Let's go to Keith in Florida. Line 6, Keith.
Hi, Laura. I have two things to say, two quick stories about this. As far as what Lindsey Graham said and Donald Trump possibly waffling on immigration, I remember one time I needed to buy equipment. My friend put me in touch with this guy who had the stuff I needed, but he would not budge on the price. I told my buddy Joe, I said, look, he's not going down in the price. He's asking way too much. He says, look, let me come with you. We'll go down there and we'll look at it. He says, just let me do the talking. Don't say much. So we go there. And before I know it, both of them are insulting me. All kinds of guy jokes, left and right. I'm like the butt of every joke they could think of for like 30 minutes. And when I left there, I ended up getting the stuff not only at a better price than I was originally thinking I might have to pay for it. He saved me over $1,000. So he basically lulled the guy into a false sense of security somehow. My friend Joe reminds me a lot of Donald Trump. I wasn't angry at Joe one bit for the jokes he was cracking about me. The guy I was buying the stuff from, who would be Lindsey Graham in this instance, I wanted to punch him in the face. I wasn't mad at my friend Joe, though.
All right.
But
I get your drift. I get your drift. We're out of time. 855-40-LAURA. I hope that's the way it all works out. But I've been around Washington for, frankly, far too long. And I know how this game is played. And I am going to be cautiously optimistic. But I am a person who sticks to principles above all else. And if we don't have a border and we don't start enforcing it and we don't fix this obscene chain migration, get rid of it, and start allowing people in the country who love this country as much as we do, then the melting pot is going to be smashed once and for all. And then we're in for a real heap of trouble. And Republicans won't win another presidential election, not in my lifetime. Think about just the mass migration of the Puerto Rican American citizens into Florida. If Republicans don't win some of those voters, when's the next time we're going to win Florida? Stay with us. Back on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Let's go to Richard in Pennsylvania, line 3. People are going crazy over this birth tourism, which has to end. And, of course, this idea of a sort of kind of wall that sort of kind of covers a third of the border. And Lindsey Graham is trashing talk radio and Fox News. I'm having deja vu all over again. This is 2006, 2007, 2013, 2014. Nothing ever changes. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, good morning, Laura. Since our incompetent federal government is spending a whopping $134 billion a year to take care of people who are in this country illegally, President Trump should take $20 billion of those tax dollars and use that to build a wall.
Well, I'm not sure it's $130 billion, but it's a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. And just taxing the remittances that they send home, I'd tax them at 50%. All those little shops they go in to send cash home, I'd tax them at 50%. Okay, you want to come here and send the money out of the country? 50% tax. At least do that. That'll go a long way toward paying the wall. How many of you would donate $100 to have part of the wall named after your family? I would. You know how they do that at churches where you're building a wall or a memory wall, and you put the brick is in memory of. I do, in memory of all the people who've been brutalized by illegal immigration, in memory of all the people who've been killed in a DWI, been the victim of violent crime. There's a lot of bricks that could be put in that wall. A lot of engravings. There's a lot to remember about what the government did right and did wrong, mostly did wrong on this issue. 855-40-LAURA. Do you want me to hold the line on this issue? Do you appreciate my holding the line, or do you think I'm being too tough on the administration? 855-40-LAURA. I want to hear from you.
Hi, this is Ben Domenech, the host of the Federalist Radio Hour. We're a daily show coming to you 5 days a week from Washington, D.C., where we interview our nation's top journalists, politicians, authors, chefs, economists, entertainers, and more. If you're looking for a contrarian discussion on news, politics, or culture, give us a listen and subscribe at podcastone.com, the new Podcast One app, or at Apple Podcasts.
We want to see something happen with DACA. It's been spoken of for years. And children are now adults in many cases. The numbers are very different, very varying. A lot of people say 800,000. Some people said yesterday, first time I heard 650, I also heard 3 million. The fact is, our country was such a mess, nobody even knows what the numbers are. But we'll know what the numbers are.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Well, maybe it is 3 million. We don't even know what the numbers are. That's so reassuring, isn't it? The president poised to strike a deal, perhaps with Congress, on enforcement on chain migration, ending the visa lottery, which pretty much everyone believes we should do. And also sanctuary city money, as that's on the table, in exchange for immediate regularization, legalization of the 800,000 or 2 million people who are in this country under this DACA program. I'm stunned that Congress has to link the two together. I said this last night on the Ingraham angle, and I got into a big back and forth with a woman who's an immigration activist. I said, well, if you're all for immigration enforcement, just do it. Why do you have to couple it with giving amnesty to 800,000 people? There's never a good answer to that question. Gary Palmer, congressman from the great state of Alabama, graduate of the University of Alabama, former football player for Bear Bryant, who was the greatest coach in college football history, but now that laurel has to be tossed toward Nick Saban after the win for the national championship. Was it a phenomenal game against Georgia? I was only sad that my friend Gary Palmer couldn't be there to enjoy it with me, and he joins us now. Congressman Palmer, how are you?
I'm well, and to correct the record, I practiced football for Bear Bryant at Alabama.
Oh, you practiced? Okay. Okay.
I can't put myself on the same level as the guys who actually started games and had great careers. But
well, wait a second,
part
Gary.
Of the program, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
All right. Were you the water boy, or what'd you do there? I thought you were a player. I'm getting wrong.
No, I played. I played. I got to play. I was a wide receiver and a running back, and went on played one season for a semi-pro team. So, and started.
Well,
but
you don't have to correct the record.
But,
You did.
you were
there. Okay. You did touch greatness in Bear Bryant. Gary, we're going to get to that Alabama game now. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But what is your sense on this DACA situation? People are, in my listening audience, are very concerned when they start hearing about see-through walls and walls that cover, or barriers, not wall, barriers that cover 700 miles. And they're very concerned when people like Jeff Flake start praising Donald Trump and people like Jeb Bush start praising Donald Trump. Is there a reason for my listeners to be concerned about what's happening with these negotiations?
Well, I think the jury's still out on that, Laura. I think there's a lot of wiggle room here, a lot of negotiating room. But the thing that I think that people need to understand about this is that our number one responsibility as members of Congress is national security. And that's being held hostage by the Democrats over DACA. And I talked to some of these young people who've been up here protesting. And I pointed out to them, I said, we can't fully fund our military because the Democrats are saying we've got to cave in and pass the DREAM Act. We can't keep the government funded. I said, they're literally men and women in uniform putting their lives on the line, defending your right to lie down in the tunnel between Longworth and Cannon office buildings in your protest. And I said, I just don't think that's the visual image that you want the American people to have. I think we've got to work through this. I don't think we should allow anybody to hold any part of the American government hostage over this. I think we got to figure out a way to do it. I think these people have to get right with the law. They all admit, everyone that I've talked to admits that they came here illegally. But I do not support amnesty in any form or fashion.
Well, everyone says they don't support amnesty, but then when push comes to shove, we're giving 800,000 people the right to stay here when they're illegally here, and most of them have relatives here who are not going to be then deported because, well, the 800,000 are here. You got to let mama stay, daddy stay, aunt and uncle get to stay, and then if you actually enforce our law against those people, then you're a heartless, horrible, awful person. That's the problem. So it's like the extended chain never ends. It just continues to strangle the workforce of the United States and tax our public services.
Well, I think that we have to end chain migration. We've got to end the stupid visa lottery. We're going to have to deal with the folks who are here illegally, and they either have to get right with the law, and we got to figure out what that means, or they have to go home. But I think at the end of the day, there's a reality here that if there's 11 or 12 million people who are here illegally, we're not going to deport them. I don't, in terms of the DACA people, I think that there's things that we could have done, we should have done, and we should be doing now regarding the foreign countries that allowed them to come here, in some cases assisted them in coming here, and cutting off foreign aid or even limiting the number of visas that the wealthy in those countries get to come over here and send their kids to school and vacation here. We don't do anything to hold people accountable.
Well, guess what? We just did a big report that we got from NBC News about Russian birth tourism. That's a huge industry in Russia and in China. This has been going on for decades, but the reporting on it is actually happening now, which is stunning. It's happening in California, Texas, Arizona, and Florida. The Russians are going to Florida. That's where they like, because they like the sun. The Russians are going to Florida.
Yeah.
Mothers are 9 months pregnant, drop the baby, have the baby, get the passport, go home, come back. Baby gets to go to American universities, gets to get all the benefits of American citizenship. Birthright citizenship is one of the biggest scams going, and again, the system is being gamed every single day.
And I think if you had a legitimate case brought against that in regard to the 14th Amendment, I think that we'd find out that that's not even a legal status, and that was never the intention of the 14th Amendment. It's the liberal interpretation of it, but and I don't think. I think Congress has the ability under Article 1 to address that. The determination of naturalization is the role of Congress. I think we've got to step up to the plate and do something about it.
What are you thinking about this deal with the retirement of Republicans? Darrell Issa, Ed Royce, others retiring. 42 congressmen have announced, I guess, they're retiring. 3 senators. 3 Republican senators are retiring. Are they of the belief that there's going to be a wipeout coming and they don't want any part of being a minority party? What's going on?
No, I think there are a couple of things going on here. One is it's not the lavish lifestyle that a lot of people have been led to believe. If you look at the Republicans in Congress, probably 60-65% have been here 3 terms or less. Last year, there were 29 or 30 members who didn't come back. Last election, I'm sorry. The election prior to that, it was a similar number. And I think, and particularly with some of these guys who are chairman, they've served chairman as chairman of 6 years. I think the workload plus the fact that they're going to go back and just be a rank and file member without the power of a gavel makes this place even less appealing to them. And I think that's why a lot of them are leaving. As a matter of fact, a couple of them have told me that. It creates a tremendous strain on a lot of members and their families, and but we're losing members every election to retirement or just decisions not to run for re-election because of the wear and tear.
Yeah, well, I think that in the end it has to be something you do for public service, and the process is very frustrating. And I know that President is very frustrated with the pace of change. That's how the framers set up our system. It's difficult to get things done, but Congress makes it more difficult. Lobbyists, big money, make it more difficult. You know, you either in the end you either do it because you think you can make a difference and you have a calling for public service, or not. I think a lot of people park themselves up there just. You know, they park themselves because it's just, you know, it is pretty cool to be a congressman. Might not get a lot of money, but it's pretty cool, and pretty cool to be a senator, especially. Only 100 people in the country who are senators. It's pretty nice. Speaking of senator, when are you going to announce that you're running?
Well, let's have that conversation later.
Oh, no, why? Come on, Gary. I talked to you before you even decided to run for Congress. You have to announce on this show. That's all I'm going to say. You have to announce on this show. All right. And I'm going to come up with your slogan for your Senate race. Yeah.
Yeah. The smiling senator.
Yeah, it's going to be Gary Palmer for smiling voters. Yeah. More smiles, less spending. Gary Palmer for Senate. More smiles, less spending. Gary Palmer for Senate. I just came up with it in like 2
security.
seconds. Yeah. More smiles, more security, less spending. Gary Palmer for Senate. That's hilarious. I love it. Hey, Gary, what about that game? Come on. Was that not that game? That national championship game gave me so many heart attacks. I was so demoralized after the first half. I thought my streak of attending Alabama games and ensuring that they win with my attendance was going to end. But what guts it took for Nick Saban to pull Jalen Hurts out and put that freshman in.
That freshman, Tua Tagovailoa, is the best quarterback that I've seen in 25 years. He reminds me of Steve Young, Brigham Young, San Francisco 49ers. He has that intangible that really separates good quarterbacks from great quarterbacks, and that is he sees the whole field.
Oh my God!
And just the kind of composure that he demonstrates, incredible. And the interesting thing is his family lives in my district. And he's got a brother who's an 11th grader in high school who I think a lot of people think he's as good as Tua. And we're looking forward to having Tua as a junior starter at Alabama and Talia as a freshman at Alabama. So
oh my God,
the future's pretty bright, I think.
Oh, no. That kid, he comes in and he starts whipping that football. I mean, those passes, like, pew, 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 pew. I was like, oh my gosh, he's like a laser beam. He reminded me of Brady a little bit because he just had a bullet for a release of that ball. And Jalen Hurts is like, wait a second, I'm a running back. Why am I even playing quarterback? I'm a runner, and I'm a brute force runner. That's what he is. And Jalen showed so much class at the end. He was smiling, and, you know, it's got to have been hard for him to be pulled out, but he knew he wasn't getting the job done.
Both these young men have incredible character and class, and that's proud of them.
All right, Gary, we're losing you. Sorry, we're losing you on the cell signal, but we got the message. It was a great game, and Tua, thank God, the blessings of God to allow him to be in that position, which I thought was so nice to hear from him after the game. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Make sure you go on our Facebook page. You can see the photos of me on the field, if you should so desire, after the game. And a lot more coming up. Don't go away. By the way, the Gang of Six in the Senate pushing this amnesty for the DACA 800,000 now are saying that parents of the DACA kids would get a 3-year provisional legal status that could be renewed. In other words, what did I predict? Amnesty. De facto amnesty. So it's not 800,000. What did I say yesterday and all last week? It's at least 2 million people getting amnesty to stay in the country. It is completely unacceptable. Forget about it. President Trump agrees to this, and I don't understand how you can keep going like this. It's just, come on. Let's go to Linda in Arizona, line 1. Linda.
Hi. First of all, I don't think your position is too harsh, and I think you should continue the fight. But in the meantime, I bet if Republicans could figure out how to commandeer some of that immigration vote, Democrats might change their tune very quickly.
Oh, yeah. So if the new immigrants started coming in and voting Republican, suddenly the Democrats wouldn't want them here. Yeah, that's right. That's correct. But it's the numbers don't lie. Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina, California. California is a state lost for Republicans. Maybe someday we can get it back, but it's not going to be any day soon. It's a supermajority running every aspect of the government. State government, most, of course, congressional seats, with new retirements this year, with Darrell Issa out, Ed Royce out, Dana Rohrabacher under huge pressure in his district in San Diego. This does not portend well for the Republican Party going forward in heavy immigration states. The new immigrants tend to be new Democrats. Stay with us.
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Podcast One has new shows on our new app. Check out all the cool features to help you explore our exciting new programming, like America's Lakers podcast with Jay Moore, So Random with Corinne Olympios, Attack Each Day, The Harbaugh's podcast, Not Just Sports with Susie Schuster and Rich Eisen, and Sessions with Randy Jackson, as well as your old favorites like The Lady Gang, Steve Austin, Shaquille O'Neal, and Adam Carolla. Get the new Podcast One app in the App Store, Google Play, or podcastone.com.